Okay, so I recently bought a dress that was on clearance. While it was shoddily made, it had this beautiful 3D lace fabric, so it was definitely worth the 30 bucks I paid for it. I'll get up and show. This is the dress, by the way. Look at that. However, it would need some adjustments. So when I tried the dress on and when I put it on my mannequin, the bodice was very droopy. You can see here, this part fits me. Oh yeah, I just painted a thumbnail. I didn't get, I'm fine, it's just paint. You can see here it fits me a little bit better in person, but here you can see that's fashion fabric and the lining fabric do not match up very well. This fits me. Getting this on the mannequin was a bit of an upward battle, so it looks better on me, but it's just, this isn't very well made. It's only partially lined because the back is smocked, but that's fine. This is a summer dress. And then both the bottom, and then, oh yeah, also it's got these cups in it, which is part of the reason why it doesn't fit, because I've padded it, but it's got these cups. And you can see them through the fabric. You can see it there. So that's another problem. And then the whole thing is lined in polyester. It just wasn't very sturdily constructed. And of course the whole dress had a polyester lining, which is the biggest problem. Now, the problem with polyester is that it is plastic. It doesn't let your body breathe, which makes you sweat, but plastic is an absorbent, so you are just left damp and itchy. On top of that, for various chemistry reasons I don't feel like researching, polyester absorbs smells, so it makes you extra stinky. Also, you know, plastic is just bad. I don't feel like I have to explain how it's not biodegradable and why microplastics are bad and all of that. I keep seeing cotton or even linen clothes with polyester linings, and it just really ticks me off, especially summer clothes. So the first thing I did was I cut out the lining of the skirt and then the bodice, and I did this as close to the seam as possible. I couldn't really seam rip it since that would have just taken apart the dress. They were sewn together, and while I was doing this, I was very careful not to cut the fashion fabric, which is the outer fabric. The dress does have bra cups sewn in, however, it was done between the lining and the fashion fabric, and because this is a summer dress, the fashion fabric is very thin, so you could see them through the dress, which is not ideal. And they were also just like tacked in on the corners, so they weren't very sturdy and they wouldn't really do anything. This dress is a very low and wide square neckline, so you don't really have a lot of options of what you can wear underneath. So the dress, the way it was patterned, it looks like it should have boning channels, but it also has elastic along the waist. So for a while I thought about putting in boning, but I ended up deciding against it, since again to do that I'd pretty much have to take apart and remake the whole dress, and that would kind of defeat the point of the project. I'm trying to change it as little as possible, just make it better. So after I removed the lining, I cut it into the front piece and then the two side pieces, and I traced the cutout lining onto a new cotton fabric, just like, I think it's, oh yeah, it was the backing for a curtain. I get a lot. Curtains are really easy to find in thrift stores, and they usually have like a cotton backing to make them more like light obstructive, so that's a really easy way to get like muslin fabric, which is like plain white cotton, I believe. All of my white stash cotton was off-white, so it's going to be an off-white lining, and it's going to be a bit more of a naturally look, which, you know, considering it's like a floral dress, I think is appropriate. So I'm going to make a lining and an interlining, which is kind of what they have in the dress, but mine is going to be a lot more structured, and also it's not going to be knit. I do really want to try making a corset dress with a scuba lining. I think that could be really fun. It would also save me a lot of headache. So, and I've tried to make like a boob cup corset dress 2 or 3 times, and every time it's gone horribly. So let me know if I should try again. I'm gonna make this out of the lining fabric, which is the front and the sides, because the back is smocked, so I can't line it. Or I guess I could, but I don't wanna. So that's the front, side, and then the interlining, it's just going to be the front and the side front, because that's where the cups are sewn onto. And then when I'm cutting these out, I will also trace the cups on so I know where to put them. So I traced it onto the new fabric and then added a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. And then I added the old bra cups onto the new lining. I traced them, pinned them on, and then centering them over the princess seam, which is when you have like the seam 3/4 way down front. So then I just sewed the lining pieces together. I didn't bind the edges at all because they would be covered because it's a lining. And then I also made a interlining out of cotton duck that would just go across the front, again give extra support to the built-in support, just to give it that extra structure. And I just again did the same thing, traced it, cut it, sewed up the seam, and then I just kind of laid them on top of each other, sandwiching the cups in between, and sewed them together, then hemmed them. And then I pinned the lining into the dress and put it up on the mannequin to look at it. And the lining did not quite, the new lining did not quite fit. At the time, I thought it was fine. However, that would come back to haunt me later, and we will unfortunately have to circle back to that. But at the time, I just kept on cruising. So I sewed the lining into the dress, and I did this I covered up any of the raw edges from when I cut the old lining out, and I sewed the tops and the sides, but not the bottom. The bottom because so that it would have that built-in bra structure. So this was when I noticed that because the new lining didn't completely match up with all of the edges of the dress, particularly on the sides and the back, you could see it and it did not look good. So I bought some applique online and put it over the edges where you could kind of see the edges of the lining showing through the fashion fabric, because it's a lightweight white fabric, so pretty much everything you're going to be able to see. So to do the applique, I cut it because it was just kind of in these long strips, so I cut it into smaller pieces to make it look, but trying to maintain that kind of viney look. And then I burned the edges to keep them from fraying and pinned them onto the fabric to hide my kind of ugly top stitching. So I had the top stitching along the bodice, and then along the skirt, I just, whatever leftover pieces, I just tried to spread them out equally along the bottom of the skirt. So I'm really happy with how the applique came out, and the way I sewed it was I just took some green thread from my stash, and I was able to machine sew it on, which I was very happy about. I was not looking forward to having to hand sew all of this on because that would have taken forever. So I just followed the grain of the embroidery. If you look really close at the leaf, you can see it's got this vertical thread pattern. So I just followed the vertical thread pattern and it blended in. Then when I tried the dress on again, the neckline hung open. Because of the really stiff duck interlining, it didn't quite shape onto my body the same way it used to. So I just added an elastic right here and right here to make it fitting again. So I just, measured it out, then stretched it, pinned it on, and did a kind of longer straight stitch just all the way across. And that's because if you do zigzag, it'll keep the elastic from stretching, so you want to keep that give. And I think this is because the original lining was knit, so it kind of helped keep that dress tight on your body. I had planned, because I removed the skirt lining, I need something to replace it. I planned on using a petticoat from my stash, but unfortunately it was too long, so I had to make a new one. Luckily it's just a ruffle gather skirt, so I cut out a big rectangle and then a long and skinny rectangle. Oh yeah, while I was doing this, I heard some suspicious noises. I went to investigate. I will show the footage of my investigation. So, let's go see what she's up to. What are you doing? What are you doing, kitty? Ah. So I gathered the ruffle, sewed it onto the skirt. I used a serger because I have one, but to bind the edges, you can either use a zigzag stitch. That's what I do when I don't have my serger with me, or before I got one, or you can just leave the seam raw, dealer's choice. And after I added the ruffle on, I hemmed it because I figured that would just be the easiest way to do it. And then after I hemmed the ruffle, I gathered the skirt and sewed it onto the waistband. I serged the edges of the waistband and the skirt again. You can skip this or zigzag it, just make it so that the stitch is really wide. And I did it so it would have a side seam, and I left that open until everything else was done. So I serged the edges of the seam. Again, you could skip it or zigzag it. And then I sewed up the seam, making sure to give myself a really juicy seam allowance. And then the about top 6 inches, like maybe this much, I left open, and I just sewed the seam allowance, I didn't iron it, but pressed it open and sewed it down. And the buttonholer on my shoe machine, neither me nor my mom could get it to work, so I just did a zigzag with a very short stitch length, and just, you know, did a little rectangle about the length of the button, and then I sewed on the button and the petticoat on, and the dress was done. I will do a kind of final reveal right now. Now that the dress is finished, I am so happy with how it turned out. I am really happy that it's done. I can't wait to wear it out somewhere and show it off. I haven't been able to find out, it's been done for about a week, and I haven't been able to figure out an occasion to wear it because it keeps being really, really rainy. So I keep having to dress warm, and it's just let me wear my new dress, please.